What's up, guys, and welcome back into Breaking Boards. In today's episode, we're going to break down the 13-game main slate over on DraftKings for week number 3 of the NFL season. Glad to have you all joining me for the player-by-player breakdown. Hopefully, you get something out of the content. If you do, drop a like and subscribe to the channel, as I do break down every slate throughout the season over on DraftKings. Again, glad to have you guys here. Let's jump into the player-by-player breakdown for week number 3. Looking at the main slate here, we have the Houston Texans taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. And we're going to kind of make this a condensed video given the amount of games that are on this slate. But I'll give you my thoughts, some core plays, and some stacks I like for week number 3. Taking a look here at Houston first, we have CJ Stroud that we can take a look at. If you want to get to Stroud stacks, I would look at stacking him with Nico Collins and possibly Christian Kirk. Not going to be overly happy about getting to this game, honestly, because I feel like it is a good spot for both of these teams. But these are two teams that match up quite frequently. And there's not a lot of opportunity for breakout in this spot, in my opinion, given that the Jacksonville Jaguars offensive line is a bit weak compared to the defensive line of the Houston Texans. So I think the Texans are going to have some opportunities to get to the quarterback and get to Lawrence, who tends to hang on to the ball a little bit long. And the same thing on the other side with CJ Stroud. Stroud just tends to hang on to the ball too much. He does take sacks, and man, they can't block anything for more than a second. But if I were going to get to a stack in this game, it would be CJ Stroud, Nico Collins, and Christian Kirk. And then looking at the other side, I would look to get Brian Thomas in that stack as well. Again, not a preferred option given that Brian Thomas is going to see Derek Stingley on Sunday. Looking at this game from an overall standpoint, QB position, again, if you want to get a Stroud or a Lawrence stack, you can get those in there. Not going to be something I prefer in week 3. Don't prefer any of these running backs in this spot. Again, these offensive lines are not great, and the defensive lines for both teams are better than the offensive line that they're facing. Looking at the wide receiver position, if I were going to get someone to this game and consider someone a core play, it would be Nico Collins. I will have him in my core builds. He probably won't make my number 1 overall lineup, but he could. Typically, I will break down. I try to have like 10 running backs, a couple of quarterbacks, and then a few receivers, tight ends, and defenses, that kind of thing. So Nico will make the core of my lineups, and if he falls into my actual core, that's cool. Don't prefer getting to Brian Thomas or Travis Hunter. Derek Stingley, I feel like, has had some great luck against greater wide receivers than Brian Thomas, and I just feel like this is a spot where Thomas's ceiling is a bit lower given Derek Stingley. Same thing here with Hunter. Jacksonville has a few cornerback injuries, and Hunter's going to play, I think he played like 40 defensive snaps over the weekend, so I just don't think his ceiling is high in the spot. Christian Kirk is a salary saver. If you want to put him in some lineups where you need $4,700 to finish out your salary, but I would just say that I would not play Nico and Christian Kirk in the same lineup unless it has CJ Stroud at the QB position. So that's going to do it for us for the Houston and Jacksonville game. Looking at the Atlanta side of the Atlanta-Carolina game, I'm not going to have any Michael Penix stacks, and I think he's going to be over-owned, but I will have a ton, and he's going to be absolutely a core play for me of Bijan Robinson. I'm going to fade a little bit of Drake London in the spot in that I don't think Atlanta's going to have to throw, and being on the road, I think they're going to lean heavy on the running game. Secondary core play for me will be Kyle Pitts, who has looked significantly better in 2025. He almost looks healthy, but my predominant play of this game would be Bijan Robinson. I will not have any Atlanta stacks. Bringing it back on the other side, I don't mind getting to a few of Bryce Young, but he's not going to be someone that I'm looking to get way over the field on or anything of that nature. I'll probably have 1 or 2 in 150 sets. Going to stay away from Chuba Hubbard. This Atlanta defense looks somewhat better in 2025, and it's just not going to be something I look to attack on the ground, so we're going to skip over Chuba. If I was going to run back Bijan Robinson, I would run it back with Ted McMillan, given that A.J. Terrell is injured currently for the Atlanta Falcons, and he is by far their best cover corner. So this would be my predominant secondary stack for week number 3 in this game. Again, both these guys would be core plays for me headed into week 3, Bijan Robinson and Ted McMillan. And then looking at the tight end position, Atlanta's been great against them in 2025, so I'm not going to mess with Jatavian Sanders in this spot. Again, predominantly for me, it would be Bijan Robinson and Ted McMillan for Atlanta at Carolina. Next up, we have Green Bay and Cleveland. I will look to get to some Jordan Love stacks, although I just got word that Tucker Kraft suffered an injury in practice. So that does bring the Green Bay or the love for Green Bay stack down for me quite a bit, given that the way that you attack this Cleveland defense is through the air, and I just don't know who to get to with Jordan Love. I was going to go, Jordan Love, Matthew Golden, Romeo Doubs, and Tucker Kraft, but given the Kraft injury, I just don't know who to pair Jordan Love with. I don't want to go two receivers. Look to try to get a tight end in the stack if I can. So we'll keep him on the board for now, and then we'll just kind of follow closely this Tucker Kraft injury. I will not be getting to Josh Jacobs. The Cleveland defensive line is probably the best aspect of their team altogether. So I'm going to skip over running backs. I would play some Matthew Golden. I would play some Romeo Doubs, and I would play Dontavian Wicks. Those guys would be the guys I would look to pair alongside Tucker Kraft if that was an option, if he's not injured and miss Sunday's game. If Tucker Kraft does miss Sunday's game, I would not play any Green Bay stacks outside of like single stacks and just trying to get different and moderately filled, if 5,000 man, 2,000 person field, something like that. But again, if Tucker Kraft is not in the game, I won't be looking to get to a lot of Green Bay for Sunday. Looking at the other side for Cleveland, I'm not going to play Joe Flacco, who's a statue against this Green Bay defense that's just been incredible to start the season. Won't look to get to any of these running backs as they are still sharing snaps quite a bit in week number 2. Don't mind getting Judy or Tillman in there if it's just a one-off, but again, they're not core plays for me at all. And then here's where I would take advantage of Cleveland versus Green Bay, in that I do think Flacco's going to have to get the ball out quite early. Don't mind getting to Njoku or Fannin. Don't mind leaving them in my core plays, and it's really just going to be, who do you think sees the larger target share against Green Bay in week 3? And I think it's really a coin flip between these two guys, but I don't mind getting either of those guys in my lineups for week number 3. Also, I would consider Green Bay's defense a core play here against Joe Flacco, and then I do think they're going to get to the quarterback quite often in week number 3. Next up, we have the battle of the backups. We have the Cincinnati Bengals traveling to take on the Minnesota Vikings. I'll probably stay away from Jake Browning here at 5,500. They priced him up quite a bit in that the Burrow injury did happen kind of early in last week's game. I will look to be over the field on Chase Brown, and I'm going to consider him a core play because I do think they're going to try to lean on him a little bit with Burrow being out of the lineup. And with that, Jake Brown is not really a rookie quarterback, but he's not played a lot, right? But he's played some, given that Burrow's injury history is getting kind of significant at this point. And he doesn't mind checking down to the running back. So I don't mind getting Chase Brown in my core. And I do think he's going to be lower owned than he should be this week. Next up, we have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I'll probably look to, I don't want to say fade these guys, but I'll be under the field on both these guys in this spot. Minnesota's defense has just been amazing for the last couple of seasons under Flores. And it's not something I'm going to look to take advantage of at these salaries. At the tight end position here, there's really just nothing for me ever, really, at the tight end position for Cincinnati. Looking at the Minnesota side, if you want to get Carson Wentz in there, I don't mind that at all. Carson Wentz would be one of my preferred stacks this week. Looking at the running back position, Jordan Mason will be an absolute core play for me, and I do think he will dominate in this game. I would say, maybe he gets 80 yards and a touchdown here versus a Cincinnati rush defense that's been the second worst in the NFL to start the season. Next up, you have Justin Jefferson. If I was going to have Carson Wentz stack, I don't mind getting Jefferson in there as well. He's really the only play for me here at the wide receiver position for Minnesota. And then at the tight end position, TJ Hawkinson just hasn't looked like himself. So I'm going to avoid him in week number 3. So in this game, I would look to play Carson Wentz. Jordan Mason is a core play at the running back position, and then Justin Jefferson is a preferred option at the wide receiver position. And then for Cincinnati, I would look to play Chase Brown. Looking next, we have Pittsburgh at New England. Taking a look at Pittsburgh. We have Aaron Rodgers here, who I think you can play if you'd like. Don't mind getting to a couple of stacks of him in larger field contests. Jalen Warren's someone who I'll leave on the board, but he's not going to be a core play for me. DK Metcalf is someone that if Christian Gonzalez stays out this game, I do think you can take advantage of DK Metcalf here at $5,700. And then the tight end position for Pittsburgh is going up against this New England defense that's been the worst in the league. It's really just the same thing as the Cleveland guys. If you have a feel one way or the other, if you like Freiermuth or Johnny Smith, you just pick one of these guys. Do not play both in the same lineup. And then looking at the New England side, Drake Mays has been awesome this year to start the season, 21.5 fantasy points per game. He will be someone I look to get to quite a bit in week number 3, especially given that his salary is still $5,300. I'm not sure what we're doing there. He should be $6,300 in my opinion. Trevion Henderson, someone that I feel like everybody's just going to keep going back to that well until we see it either cost us money through week 7 or he finally has a breakout week. I don't mind getting him in my lineups. He's not someone that I consider a core play, but he is a fringe core play for me in week 3. I would play one of these receivers. I would not play more than one. You can go Diggs, Booty, or Douglas, depending on which one that you prefer. And then I would try to get Hunter Henry in those lineups that I have Drake May. So we're talking about a Drake May, Trevion Henderson, Hunter Henry running back on the other side with DK Metcalf, or we're talking about a Drake May, Trevion, Stephon Diggs running back with Jonnu or Freiermuth on the other side. So New England is going to be one of my top stacks of the week. So one of my top 5 for the video. Looking next, we got the Los Angeles Rams traveling to take on the Philadelphia Eagles. Matthew Stafford is not going to be someone that I play against this Philadelphia defense. Kyron Williams is also not going to be someone I look to get to in the spot, but I will play quite a bit of Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. You can play either of these guys. You can consider them core plays. Do not play them in the same lineup. I never play a tight end for Los Angeles. Just never do it. So we can skip over that fairly quickly. Looking at the Philly side, Jalen Hurts is awesome, but I won't look to get to him this week. Saquon is someone I won't play a lot of this week, and he's not one of my spend-up options for me. I much prefer some other guys that we'll talk about. A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith are just guys that I'll mix in. Neither one of those guys will be core plays. And then Dallas Goedert, I just want to see how healthy he is before I make a play in the spot. So predominantly in this game for me, we're talking about Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. If I were going to choose someone, I would choose Puka. And that would be one of my core plays for this week for the Los Angeles Rams and Eagles. Next up, we have the Jets traveling to take on Tampa Bay. With Fields out and with Taylor being 4,800, I don't mind getting a couple of Taylor, but he's not someone that I'm high on for week number 3. I will have Breece Hall in my core plays for week 3, so he's someone I'm going to look to get to quite a bit. Going to stay away from Garrett Wilson, although I don't mind mixing him in. I just don't know what you're going to see when he's playing alongside Tyrod. And then the tight end position here just hasn't looked great to start the season for the Jets. Looking at the Tampa Bay side, you have Baker Mayfield, who's going to be one of my core stacks this week. You have Bucky Irvin, who I don't mind including in those stacks. You could also include Rachaad White if you need that $5,100 salary versus the $7,100 salary of Irvin. Mike Evans is someone I would look to stay away from if Ejbuka is healthy or if Godwin is healthy. I would want one of the two to play in. I would want one of the two to sit. If that happens, I would consider Baker a core play. If both these guys play, I would just look at Bucky Irving. And then looking at the tight end position, don't mind to get to K. Dotton, but he's not someone that I'm going to try to get to a lot. So for this game, if you have Ejbuka and Godwin both healthy, I would only look to play Bucky Irving from the Tampa Bay side. And then on the New York side, Breece Hall would be someone I would look to get to quite a bit. Next up, we have Indianapolis at Tennessee. Daniel Jones has just been playing out of his mind. I will not fall into that trap. You guys can keep believing that if you'd like to. My play here would be I'm going to have Jonathan Taylor, and I'm going to be over the field on Jonathan Taylor at 7,200. And then if you want to get to one of these guys as a salary saver, I would not play more than one in the same lineup. I would also not play either of these guys in the lineups that you have Jonathan Taylor. And then at the tight end position, Tyler Warren has just been a stud to start the year. If you want to mix and match him into your lineups, I have no problem with that at all. And then the Indy defense has been great, and Tennessee may be the worst team in the NFL to start the 2025 season. I'm not going to look to have a lot of Cam Ward. I mean, he's just not looked great to start the season, and I'll look to fade him versus the field. Same thing here with the running back position. Tony Pollard is just someone that should be doing better than he is. 9.1 fantasy points, seeing all the carries is just pitiful. Could he break out in this spot? Absolutely. Do I project it? No. He's someone that would be a fringe play for me if you want to mix him in as a one-off. In the wide receiver position, going against Indy, again, just one-off plays here. Io Manners look really great to start the season. Calvin Ridley has not. If you want to mix them in, if the salaries work out, fine. Not a lot of targets here, I don't believe, for Io Manor as we pull him up. Well, 6 and 7 is pretty decent at $3,700. So don't mind getting him in there as a salary saver at $3,700. And then Chiga Kongwu and all these guys have just looked not very great, right? Pedestrian to start 2025, so not somewhere I'm going to look to go to. My favorite plays in this game would probably be Jonathan Taylor as a core play for Indianapolis, and then Io Manor as a one-off for Tennessee. Looking at Vegas versus Washington, you have Geno Smith here. I think he's someone that you probably want one or two of if you're going to have 150 sets, but not someone who's going to be a core play for me at the QB position. Ashton Genty is going to break out at some point. Who knows when that's coming? He will be mixed and matched into my lineups. He will not be a core play, but if I get him into my lineups, I'm not sad about that at all. Jacoby Myers, almost the same thing with Genty. Although he's not going to break out, he will have some pretty solid games, but at 5,600, he's going to be someone that I'm under the field on. And then these guys, I'm just going to be under the field on altogether. If I were going to play someone in this game for the Vegas side, it would be Brock Bowers. He will be a core play for me at the tight end position. I'll just keep an eye on his knee to see how things are progressing throughout the week. For the Washington side, as we take a look here, Jaden Daniels, not really sure what we're going to get here. If he sits and Mariota plays, just completely mark this side of the QB room off the board. So you're going to have to play them by ear. If Jaden Daniels does play, I would play some of him. If he sits, I would not play any of Mariota. Looking at the running back position, I mean, Krosky Merritt should see a lot of carries. I would just avoid this situation in this room as much as you can currently and let it play out. I think you could take a look at Deebo Samuel, especially if Jaden Daniels sits. I would look to get more Deebo if Jaden is sitting. Don't mind getting McLaurin as a one-off as well. I would not play either one of these guys in the same lineup. I would play one or the other. And then at the tight end position, I predominantly stay away from Zach Ertz always, and Vegas hasn't been terrible against the tight end position to start 2025. So I would look to get Brock Bowers and then run it back with Deebo Samuel as a secondary stack for Las Vegas versus Washington. Next up, we have Denver traveling to take on the Chargers. Taking a look at the Denver side here, Bo Nix is almost like Geno Smith. I would like to get a couple of him, but I don't want to be over the field on Bo Nix. I would avoid the running back room at all cost here for Denver. And then for the pass catchers here, I would look to avoid that as well, as the Chargers have had a pretty good defense to start the season. Nothing in the tight end room here as well for me in Denver. Looking at the Chargers side, this Denver defense is great as well, so I'm not going to have many Herbert stacks this week. I will look to mix in some Omarion Hampton. Again, just like Genty, he's going to break out at some point. Just not knowing when that point is the part that sucks. And then taking a look at the wide receiver position, again, you can mix these guys in, but not someone that I'm going to look to be over the field. All three of these guys have balled out to start the season, but I'm just going to look to be under the field on these guys in this matchup. And the tight ends here, we're just flipping a coin. These are more showdown style plays. So talking about Denver and the Chargers, I would look to get to Omarion Hampton here at the running back position as a fringe core play. Otherwise, I would just mix and match these guys. If they fall into a lineup and I like the rest of the lineup, I'm cool with that. Next up, we have the New Orleans Saints at Seattle. Looks like this game might see some weather. Spencer Rattler, I'm just never going to play it. Alvin Kamara is someone I'll look to be over the field on. He will be a core play for me in week 3 against the Seattle defense that hasn't been great. I will fade these guys in the wide receiver position in a game that's going to be sloppy on the road with a quarterback that really doesn't know what he's doing in an environment that might be one of the toughest to play in the NFL. But I will be over the field and will be a core play for me. Jawan Johnson has balled out to start the season, 15.8 fantasy points per game in the second best matchup in the NFL. So for the New Orleans side, it's core play, Jawan Johnson, core play, Alvin Kamara. The rest of it I will avoid. Looking at things from the Seattle side, I will have a couple of Sam Darnold lineups and run it back with the guys that we talked about for the New Orleans side. Kenneth Walker is also in play with for me here. If Charbonnet sits, if he does sit, then Kenneth Walker becomes a core play. Looking at the wide receiver position, you can get either one of these guys in your lineup, but they're just going to be fillers for me, or they'll be paired alongside Sam Darnold in those stacks. Jackson Smith and Jigba being the preferred option. I would not look to double stack those guys together in the same lineup, and I would probably put Kenneth Walker in the lineups that I have Sam Darnold in the captain spot. And then these tight ends are just kind of whatever. If you want to throw these guys in there and save some salary, you can, but not something I prefer. And then I don't mind playing the Seattle defense at home versus New Orleans as well. And then we're going to go ahead and skip over this game and come back to it. And then we have Arizona at San Francisco. Not going to look to stack much of Arizona in this spot. We'll consider a fringe core play, James Conner. And then looking at this wide receiver room here, Marvin Harrison Jr. would be a fringe core play for me as well at the wide receiver position. Trey McBride would be a core play for me for Arizona. I would play max one of those guys in a lineup, prefer McBride of those 3 options. For San Francisco, this is just a team that's beat up. Purdy may be back this week, so we're going to hold off on the QB position for San Francisco, Christian McCaffrey would be a core play for me. He's just been a stud to start the season. Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings would both be fringe core plays for me. And then we're just going to skip that tight end room altogether until George Kittle gets back. And then jumping over to the game of the week here in Dallas and Chicago, I will have many stacks of both sides of this game, as both of these passing defense have been absolutely terrible to start the season. I'll be way over the field on Dak. If I'm going to stack up Dak, I don't mind putting Javonte Williams in those lineups, but I prefer to get Lamb or Pickens and pair them alongside Jake Ferguson. So I would have Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Jake Ferguson, or I would have Dak Prescott, George Pickens, Jake Ferguson. That would be my predominant stacks here for Dallas. Looking at the other side, almost the same thing. I would have quite a bit of Caleb Williams. Don't mind getting Swift in there if he plays, but look to get Rome Odunze or DJ Moore. I don't really have one way lean over the other, although he is balled out this year and a cheaper price tag here on Rome Odunze, but that's going to significantly lower the ownership on DJ Moore. So I will look to be over the field, given what I think the ownership is going to come in at. And then if you want to mix these guys in as salary savers, you can. So my main stack here for Chicago is going to look something like Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze. If you want to get DJ Moore in those lineups, you can as well. And then I would run it back on the other side with CD or George Pickens. And then taking a look at my favorite stacks of the week, will not have many of Houston or Jacksonville. Same thing with Atlanta, Carolina. Depending on Tucker Kraft. If Tucker Kraft plays, given this new injury, I would play some stacks of Green Bay. I will not have any of Cleveland. I will not have any of Cincinnati. If you want to have some Wentz, Jordan Mason, Justin Jefferson stacks, I don't mind that at all. Won't have any Pitt stacks, but I will have some Drake May stacks. So my first core stack would be the New England side. I would go Drake May, Travion Henderson, and then I'll let you pick, dealer's choice on the pass catcher. If you want to get Diggs, Booty, Pop Douglas, Hunter Henry, Hooper in there, I don't care which one, but this would be my starting stack for the New England Patriots. I will not have any of the Rams and the Eagles. I don't mind getting to Tampa Bay with the caveat that either Edgebuka or Godwin sits. If both these guys play, I don't want any of it. If one of these guys plays, I would play Baker, Bucky, and one of these two guys, as I'm going to look to fade Mike Evans in this matchup against Sauce Gardner. Won't look to have any Indy or Tennessee. Won't look to have many Vegas or Washington. Won't look to have any Denver or Chargers. We'll have some Sam Darnold stacks this week, and I would go Sam Darnold, Kenneth Walker if Charbonnet sits, and then I would go Jackson Smith and Jigba and run it back with Alvin Kamara on the other side or Jawan Johnson. And then we're going to look at the Arizona-San Francisco game next. No stacks here for me. But looking at the Dallas side, I would stack Dallas. We're talking about, again, Dak, CD or Pickens, and then Ferguson. And then on the other side, we're talking about Caleb, one of his receivers, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, and then run it back with CeeDee Lamb, Jake Ferguson, or George Pickens. That's going to do it for the week 3 breakdown. I appreciate you guys being here with me. Again, another condensed video given the size of the slate. There's quite a few games here with 13 games on the slate for week number 3, so I didn't want to have a significantly long video for you guys to watch. Appreciate you guys being here. Hopefully you got something out of the content. If you have any questions or if you have any ideas as far as stacks, drop those in the comments. I appreciate you guys being here again. I hope you take down the Millionaire Maker over on DraftKings for week number 3. I appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to you guys next time. Thanks.